to order at 6:03 p.m. on September the 27th. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. First order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from the September 6th, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Sarah moves, Tom seconds.
Chris,
all in favor?
Hang on, Chris, one second. I heard back from Patrick. Patrick was telling me that he was part of executive session, which was not noted correctly on the minutes, and my apologies. So I'd like to request an amend for that.
I'm sorry, say that. I missed that part. So I say that again.
Sorry, Patrick Hayes let me know that he was a part of exec session on the last meeting, which was not noted correctly on the minutes. So I'd like to amend the minutes to note that Patrick was a part of that. Patrick, do I have that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies.
So then,
I'd like to make a motion to amend, to approve as amended.
To approve the minutes from September the 6th as amended, as described by Sarah. Can I get a motion to approve the amended minutes? Tom moves, second. Jill seconds. All in favor? Great. Unanimous. Caller 1, is that you, Laurel, or is that somebody else?
Yes,
Okay.
Laurel. Sorry, I'm having trouble. Wherever I am, it's not working.
No problem. We hear you as caller 1. Who is caller 2?
It's going to be David Martin. I couldn't get in.
Oh,
either.
perfect. Okay, great. I asked that because public comment is up next, and it doesn't appear that we have any members of the public attending, so we can skip that. Jill, unless you have something to add, nothing really to add on the chair's report because we have some specific things to cover in this meeting. Nothing really new since the last meeting other than to report briefly that Jill and I met with the first selectman and the first selectman to be, I guess, and the head of the Board of Finance, and gave them a briefing on our last meeting and our plan going forward. That was really just a factual download. But other than that, nothing really to report. Jill, unless you had something else.
Nope, it sounds good.
Then I would like to turn it over to Kevin to talk about two matters that we need to take action on. One is renting construction fencing at Hinley, and another is with regard to the additional soil sampling that we might need. So Kevin, if you could take it away.
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Through Carrie Snowden, the principal at Hinley, we had received a concern over the old playground equipment in the, what would that be, southeast corner of the property, and the corresponding soil that we moved to relocate the playgrounds. Perhaps they're being a little too accessible to students after hours. During the day, Carrie's team does a really good job of keeping the kids away from the area, but we did receive some concerns. Obviously, the original plan was to have construction fencing set up this past summer, and we were breaking ground, but that didn't happen. So I thought it might be a good idea to bring it to the committee and propose setting up an 8-foot chain link fence until we get some contractors on board.
So, Kevin, could you walk us through why the playground equipment should stay, in your opinion, at this stage versus just being taken down? Or is that your opinion?
Sure. So originally we thought that the site contractor would be responsible for demoing the items that couldn't be relocated due to age and non-compliance. We could certainly look into doing that as a district and, pulling them out of the ground ourselves. But maybe as a stopgap, the easier thing is to set up some fencing to keep the kids from climbing on it when we, really don't want them in that area.
Is this fencing that will then be able to continue to be used or reused once we get ready to start construction next spring?
That's right. So the plan was to set up construction fencing across the property, going past the portables towards the mechanical room. So this would be a smaller version of that, just blocking off the area in question.
So is it fair to say that this is more kind of a matter of timing and getting this fencing up now, and it's just, well, then there'll then be additional fencing put up once we're ready to start construction in the spring?
Yes, that's right.
So I think two other questions, at least from me. Carrie and Kevin, would you please walk through the impact of the campus? And Kevin, would you walk through the finances, please?
Sure. So I'll let Kerry speak to the operations during the day, but to me, there's, we've got some yellow caution tape up as it is, so there's really not too much impact to the campus currently. The finances, I did get a rough estimate of about $8,000. But that, keep in mind, is for a 2-year rental, which this probably wouldn't need to be nearly that long, because at some point that the cost would get turned over to the GC. But then as far as the day-to-day, I really don't think we have much of a concern. Do you, Kerry?
No, I think if you've been by Hinley, you see currently there's some orange construction fencing, orange temporary fencing set up around the piles of dirt. It goes right in front of our wall ball and then heads back toward the back fence. And I think the fencing we're talking about would be roughly in the same area. So honestly, we are living without that space right now, and it's perfectly fine. I think during the school day, the fencing that we're talking about would be exactly like what's happening today.
So to be clear, there's multiple areas of the campus that are impacted. One is the playground area, the equipment that's aged out and not compliant, and the other is some dirt piles and the like. All of that needs to be cordoned off, number one. And number two, Kevin, can you speak to, if we were to actually knock it down, what would that be? Or is there any reason to remove the dirt and to restore that area to Hinley versus, I mean, it certainly seems like $8,000 is manageable, but why would we not just go ahead and take down the playground equipment and replace the dirt, remove the dirt?
Yeah, and we can certainly look into doing that. I don't think we have a problem doing that. It was just a timing issue where, we were expecting to be in full swing of demolition and construction by now, and in the rush to get everything ready for summer with installing a new portable classroom, it was just something that we didn't get to, I guess.
Well, is that true, Kevin, or is there also I thought also maybe you were going to have the equipment demoed as part of the overall demolition in that area? If we were to pay a separate demolition cost, what's the order of magnitude for that?
Right, and that's where I was going, is either we try to look to do it in-house, which, we can rent some equipment and get the items pulled out and disposed of, or we could, contact the playground vendor and ask them to do it for us. But as we saw it over the summer, this would have just been rolled up into the site work
Right. Is there any sense in removing the dirt now?
So I think that ties into the second topic we need to talk about, which is the soil plan and the additional testing, because that is pretty good, clean, native fill that either could be reused on site or elsewhere in town. So I didn't really know what to do with it over the summer, so we just kind of kept it on the corner of the property for future consideration.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're recommending is keeping the dirt because it's good, clean fill, and waiting until you actually do a demolition and just embedding the demolition costs for the playground equipment with the rest of the demolition in that area. If we were to take the playground equipment down, would it even be usable play space anyway?
No, the play space is no longer compliant. We don't have enough clearance zones for children to use the area. So it should be cordoned off, whether it's with chain link or snow fencing. Either way, it would be off limits.
Okay. Thank you.
And is it fair to say that there might be additional cost if we brought a contractor in today to remove the playground, remove the soil, rather than fencing it off and then doing it all as part of the site prep next spring?
Yeah, Yeah, there's the mobilization and the extra startup costs of, coming in and kind of getting all the dirt out of there ahead of breaking ground.
Any questions from the committee or points of
Chris,
discussion? Go
Chris,
ahead.
this is Dave. Just one. So, Kevin, did you say, is this a 2-year rental agreement?
Yeah, I was talking to National. They inadvertently put 2 years when I only asked them for one, but it would be a not to exceed number of approximately $8,000.
Okay, I was just thinking of, I'm not sure how that would dovetail with our fence, but I would say that, the most cost-effective way, because I don't know how we'd break it out in the bidding documents, would be that when we're ready to, is it temporary posts or are they actually driving posts around this?
No, just ballasted.
Yeah.
Chain link.
So I mean, my guess is that you're just going to rent it until we go to start out there, and then it'll be replaced by the fencing that we have already in our logistics plans, right?
Right.
Okay. So all right, but you're not committing to it. That's just a order of magnitude for worst case, and you'll just consume it as you need it. Okay.
That's exactly.
All right.
And
All right. Thanks for clarifying.
Trying to get the committee.
So, Kevin, this is Dave Martin. So the quote you got was for a 2-year rental. Sounds like we only need a rental for a few months, right?
That's right.
So will
Yeah,
we be able to
A year.
adjust the
Yeah, we can have it edited for any duration of length, and that's really, to Dave's point, that's order of magnitude worst case scenario rental fee.
So it's prorated if we don't use it for the full 2
Or
years,
revise the proposal to reflect
right.
8, 10 months, whatever.
Or a monthly charge would probably be the most practical way to do it. Would just be on a monthly basis.
Correct.
Okay, so realistically speaking, at most, we're really only looking at like 4K, right? For 1 year?
Correct.
It's going to be as likely to be less than that.
I
But
would
but if we approve this, you will negotiate to try to get it on some type of monthly basis so that we can use it as long as we need until it's replaced with the fence when we break ground.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think Dave Martin. I don't have the matrix right in front of me, but I believe that if we were to do this on a monthly basis, I think the amount is such that we can authorize that as a committee. We don't even need to vote on it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But any comments or questions or input from other members of the committee? Okay. Since we don't have a hard number, I'm not sure, Sarah, Jill, you know better than I do, but since we don't have a hard number to approve or not, I don't know that it warrants a vote.
I think you need to vote to spend the money.
I'm sorry?
I think you do need to vote. You approving the.
Right, but we don't know the amount. I guess we can approve spending up to
Yes.
$8,000 for a 2-year period and authorize Kevin to negotiate that down as best he can for a monthly charge. Okay, so with that, then can I get a motion to authorize spending up to $8,000 for temporary construction fencing for a 2-year period and to authorize Kevin Monrette to negotiate with National Construction for a reduced, hopefully monthly rate for the use of that fencing?
So moved.
Joe moves. Tom seconds. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Great.
Aye.
Kevin, next one is hygienics proposal. And I guess, why we think we need additional soil sampling and what your recommendation is with respect to the proposal submitted by hygienics.
Sure. So after our last committee meeting, Laurel, Travis, and I talked with Joe Canis, Ty and Bond, and the hygienics team about the contaminated soils samples that were taken. Those initial pits from February, I guess it was, were predominantly driven by where the new construction was going. But at the time, we did not test in the areas for stormwater retention, underground stormwater retention, or things like the Henley playground area, etc. So to avoid any surprises down the road, we thought it might be a good idea to do more test pits in areas around the campus, especially where we needed to either relocate playgrounds or put in these different retention systems.
So it's a fairly limited additional testing by hygienics.
That's right. We're predicting, I think it was 3 days of digging and samples being taken at different areas of the campus. And it's also going to help give us a better idea of the amount of contaminateds that we did discover in February, about how much we have to deal with, so to speak, when the time comes to relocate them on the properties.
And what's the time frame on that? Because presumably that's the relocation or the removal of any contaminated soil is going to be part of the scope of the site prep work, and then would have to go into our revised appropriation request, correct?
I believe so, and maybe Laurel might be able to answer that one better, but I know that the contaminators could be relocated on the site, and I believe she was changing the wording for the bid documents to reflect that. And it's just a matter of how much do we have and where, and are we sure we've caught it all?
And does our site prep contractor do that, or do we need to hire a separate contractor because of the nature of the soil?
No, the site
Depending
contractor
on
will
what they
take
find,
care of it.
obviously.
The site contractor will be taking care of this, and it's really just to better define how much polluted soils we're expecting to encounter on site. And one of those cost savings items that were still being considered from the last meeting was to plan on keeping all polluted soils on site, not disposing of them off site, thereby saving money. So we also want to identify any areas at each school that we could possibly excavate, take out clean soil and put the polluted soil there. The polluted soil can stay on site. It's just got like some small construction debris. It just can't be used as backfill. It can't be used as structural fill. So we can keep it on site as long as it's above the water table and it's covered like with topsoil. So all of this testing is to give us more information so that we can try to keep all those polluted soils on site. Because I don't know if you remember when we were doing the cost estimate, we ended up putting quite a bunch of money in for this disposal of the polluted soils. So this is one of the cost savings ideas, to keep it on site.
Do we have a ballpark on the savings amount?
Well, we had the costs that we were experiencing were like several $100,000. So how much of that we're going to save? I would say it's a 6-digit figure. I don't know if it's on the higher side or the lower side, but definitely it's a lot of money to take these soils and dispose of them in a landfill per se. So this additional testing is just to give us better characteristics of the rest of the site that wasn't sampled at all, because as Kevin had mentioned, it was only done where the additions were going and not out on the site at large, where we could we want to make sure we're going to have clean soil where we can consider excavating out and putting the polluted soils there, because we kind of know how much polluted soils we're going to have. And also where the stormwater detention structures are, that's quite a large excavation. We should know now whether or not we're going to be running into polluted soils. So in the timing of it, to answer the timing of it, they need to do these test pits. They need to get the samples analyzed, which I think was going to take a week. And then the design team, Joe Canis, Ty and Bond, need time to react to the information. And we need to just update our documents while we're out to bid. So we basically have a good 3 weeks or so to get this all wrapped up.
And Kevin, did you look at Hygienics' proposal, and is it consistent with the proposal that they made for their testing work that they had done already? And do you feel like it's a fair proposal?
So yeah, I did review it. We are supplying the equipment, the machinery, and the manpower to do the digging, and they're supplying the testing. But you know, it's their soil management plan, and you know, it's very consistent to what we saw in February.
Any questions or points of discussion for Kevin on that?
I just want to make sure I understand. So we're going to maintain the soil for a longer period of time because we want to do additional testing on it to see if it is usable further down the pike, either for ourselves or for possibly if town were to have a need around the same time. Is that correct?
No, we're just trying to sample the soil that's underground just to make sure we can tighten up what we expect to uncover when we start digging.
Okay, so I thought it has something to do with the soil at Hinley.
No.
Soil at all the campuses. It has nothing to do with the chain link fence per se. That was dirt from the field that we located to move the playground. But you know, to Laurel's point, we did not do initial test pits in the areas where the stormwater retention ponds are going to be, and we just want to make sure we don't find anything under there, or if we do find it, we want to know it now instead of later.
Okay, so this would enable us to have a greater level of precision when we go out to bid. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. We're trying to avoid a change order, if you will.
Okay, so there's no change in anything, how we're handling anything other than an additional level of testing because we have more time and we're just trying to get more precision.
Correct.
Well, let's back up. What triggered, Kevin, could you go over again? I know you mentioned it earlier. What triggered the need to retain hygienics to do the additional testing? Wasn't there some concern that some of the soil that had been excavated or where we plan to excavate might have contamination?
So the test pits around where the proposed buildings are going to go were dug in February or March, and we did discover contaminated soils, which is not known, and that's what these second round of tests will help us determine, so that if we do need to relocate them on site, we have an idea of how much we're dealing with and where we should put them.
Just to be clear, Kevin, that when you say we discovered contaminated soil, we are talking about soil that is not great quality for building. We're not talking about health issues for kids who are in school, correct?
Correct. So
can I just jump in? So let me just jump in here.
Go ahead.
Sorry. There are two different classifications. There's contaminated and then there's polluted soil. So the contaminated soil that was encountered, that will still be, as it is encountered, will be disposed of off-site. That little bit, and it's just a small amount at each of the three schools, but all three schools have it. Where we actually encounter those soils, those will still get hauled off-site. It's the polluted soil, this other classification, which is really just construction debris. Think of bricks or pieces of masonry or little bits of concrete. That can stay on site. That's not harmful at all. It just is unsuitable for use as structure. So that's the polluted soils quantity is what we're trying to manage here by doing this additional testing.
Okay, and so what you're saying is that the need to remove the polluted soil has an order of magnitude somewhere in the 6 digits of impact to each campus. So somewhere between 300 and 900,000 to the total bottom line?
Yes, for all three schools. And we knew that there was this extra cost when we did our last estimate, but it was also confirmed when we were doing our scope reviews with the site bidder, the single site bidder, that this was a lot of money, and that this went right on that value management log as a means to save money, is to find a way to keep the polluted soils on site as opposed to paying to haul them off and dispose of them off site.
Thank you.
Yeah, so since we knew we were going to be rebidding, we're taking advantage of the time to better assess, and we should be able to reduce the cost.
Okay, so when we get the results of the test back, then we can decide how we want to handle it. We can say, you know, if we move forward and completely remove the soil, here's the order of magnitude. If we test it and we feel like the level of quality is okay, we can keep it, and that this is the order of magnitude. Is that effectively, we're looking for a second conversation between now and the 5th?
No, we're just looking for the authorization to conduct the additional sampling, and then the engineer, the design, the landscape, Ty and Bond is going to make sure that we can keep the soils on site, even if we have to dig a hole somewhere and take the clean fill out and put the polluted soils there. And that is all going to get wrapped into the bid. That will be reflected in the bid that we receive from the site contractor.
So it's going to go to the scope of work that the site contractor has to do as to whether they need to haul soil off site or whether they can use it on site. And the testing
Correct.
will then enable Laurel to more precisely prepare the request for bid document for site preparation.
Right. We want to make sure, we want to tell the site contractors that the polluted soil must stay on site, but first we need to do our due diligence to make sure that the sites can accommodate keeping it there. So that's why we're doing the additional sampling, just to make sure that we can, in fact, keep all the polluted soils on site.
And of course, it's some nomenclature is somewhat difficult here because polluted means, you know, not good things to most lay people. But my question really here is, you know, are based on the results, are you going to move forward, or are you going to come back to the committee with the results so that we understand the plan moving forward and have a chance to weigh in should there be any concerns?
I'm sure that we can report back to you what became of the test results, but the idea is to get this revised scope into the bidding documents that are going to be due November 1st. So we want to make sure that, you know, we want to move forward with it, but we can certainly give you an update with where things stand.
I think that's probably pretty important. Thank you.
Is that because, Jill, is that because of the, as you said, nomenclature, that we want to be able to assure people that we're not going to be putting something that's unhealthy into the campus?
I think both the nomenclature and the order of magnitude make it appropriate to have a discussion with the committee so we understand the impact.
Yeah, but ultimately the order of magnitude is going to be reflected in the bid that we get from the site contractor.
Understood.
That's correct.
Just if we've made an engineering decision that impacts the project by approximately 300,000 or approximately 900,000, again, there'd be 3 different line items. I'd just like to understand before we go out to bid what we think that directionally is going to be.
So Laurel, we probably have a decent handle on what the unit price for it is, right? It's really at this point, we just don't know the quantity, right? So once they do the sampling and testing and we know more of the quantity, we could give them an approximate estimate, correct?
Well, we have a quantity that was established by Hygienics. Hygienics came up with a cubic yardage that all the bidders were to carry, and what we're trying to do is eliminate that by not disposing of it off site, keep it on site. But first, we also want to confirm that quantity because again, they didn't do testing in the other areas that we're going to be digging. So we want to confirm the quantity, and then we want to direct the site contractors to not haul it off site. And I'll just reiterate that this is material that's there now. It seems to be like remnants of when they built their other additions. It's just stuff that landed in as backfill, if you will. And it will not be, the children will not be exposed to it. It will be underground. It'll still be underground. It'll still be covered.
Laurel, what is the contaminant in the soil? I'm assuming we don't have plumes of like oil.
We do have contaminated soil, and again, that will be being hauled off-site. I am not familiar with what actually the contaminant is, and I don't know if anybody from the design team remembers what the chemicals are that they found, but they definitely had. Go ahead.
I think a lot of it was mostly pesticides from like 50 years ago that still is residual in the soils, especially around the perimeter of the building. And there might be, I think it's like naturally occurring or due to fuel burning of petroleum-based products.
Like,
you get some of that in there.
PAHs.
Yep.
Yep.
But we can send a report that shows you in more detail.
Okay. Well, I think it makes, in my opinion, it makes sense to move forward. But like I said, I just think given the potential impact of the project, it makes sense to inform the committee about what the results of the plan is before we go out to bid.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, what we need to do is authorize retaining hygienics, vote to authorize retaining hygienics, and once the work is done, to get a report on the results of that and what we think the implications are to the site prep scope of work.
Yep.
Any other questions from committee members before we ask for a motion to approve?
No question. Chris, just a comment I would like to say. I think it's good to have a number other than 6 figures, so tied to this analysis, so we know exactly what it is when these guys come back. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Agreed. So with that, can I get a motion to authorize entering into an agreement with Hygienics to conduct follow-up testing in accordance with the proposal that was sent around, and to then ask Hygienics and the design team and the construction management team to come back and report on the results of that additional testing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. So next, I think, Sarah, we probably, rather than a presentation by ONG AP, I think we probably should go into executive session, because the presentation is really going to be a discussion of 2 or 3 bid items that and the recommendation by ONG AP. So can I get a motion to go into executive session? Paul moves. Can I get a second? Tom seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
So with that, we'll stop recording the
This
public
conference
session.
will now be recorded.
Okay.
Sarah moves. All in favor? Tom seconds.
Aye.
All in favor? We're unanimous. Okay. We are back in open session. Then I guess the last thing, Laurel, is to maybe just walk the group through the upcoming important dates, review your timeline, because based on where we are and which trades are going to be rebid, what is the process and the timeline from this point forward until we're ready to advertise for rebid and to start the rebid process? Because I'm looking at your timeline and it has advertisement for rebid beginning on the 26th of September, which hasn't happened, but with documents to be made available on October 3rd. How is that? Where does that sit at this point?
Okay, so I've coordinated with Karen Dunn of the town of Darien. She happened to be on vacation, so she's coming back to work next Tuesday, which is the 3rd. So I've agreed with her that that's the date that we're actually going to make all the documents public. KG&D has provided to me their rebid documentation. I'm in the final throes of just coordinating to wrap it into my stuff, so that as of next Tuesday, we are prepared to release the documentation It sends out, we put it on our FTP site similar to before. It sends out an email to all of our pre-selected bidders, who is a bigger list at this point based on our outreach. And so as of next Tuesday, we will be out to bid, and then Karen's going to take care of putting it up on the state website as well as putting it in the newspaper. And then we also organized a follow-up walkthrough. I didn't really want to do a formal meeting at the 3 schools. It's ironic, the 1 month that we're going to be rebidding is 1 month. There's no half days or anything with school being out of session. So we're going to show up at the 3 different schools on 3 different days. Tuesday, October 17th at 2 o'clock or 2:30. 2:30 we'll be at home. Wednesday, October 18th at 2 o'clock will be Henley. And Thursday, October 19th at 2 o'clock will be Royal, where we're going to put this in the invitation to bid. We're going to invite bidders if they want to walk through the building. It gives them another opportunity to look at the building. But we're not going to do a formal presentation. We're just going to be there to answer any questions. And then when I go out to the bid, I put a bid due date of 1st, which is Wednesday. And as we get closer to November 1st, before that, we obviously will be checking in with contractors, bidders, making sure that they have enough time. But as we get closer to towards the end, we'll be, if we have to delay it, just about a week or so more. But we're trying not to. We really want to get everything wrapped up before the holidays start to kick in. And I know last time we talked about like a November 16th time frame to try to get, all the numbers in solid by then. So right now the bid will be due November 1st.
Right. So yeah, working backwards, I think we're trying to shoot for numbers that, being able to go in front of Board of Selectmen on December the 18th, Board of Finance on December the 19th. So having enough information to be able to come up with good firm numbers to do those presentations.
Right. So we want, in order to do that, we need the bids to come in. I need to scope them similar to what I did before. Then I need to prepare an actual guaranteed maximum price. So that's the number that you would be going forward with for your December meetings.
Any questions for Laurel? Any other items that anybody else wants to bring up while we're together?
Well, I just didn't want, this is Laurel again, I didn't want to leave those 4 lingering cost savings items that were still being considered by the design team. I just want to give an update on those. There was only 4. One was about powder actuated and Sammy's anchor attachment at the roof. The design team has analyzed, there's 2 items there. One of them is fine, so that's going to be incorporated into the rebid document. The building committee doesn't really have to act on them. Number 20 was to do something per SMACNA standards. I think that was just a misinterpretation from our bidder. And there's nothing for the committee to act on for that. The 21 was the proposing the reuse of anticipated polluted soils on site. That was the conversation we had earlier. So that's pretty much going to try to get implemented if we can. And then the last one was number 22, owner to identify town-owned disposal location for surplus native fill. And we've pretty much discussed that with Kevin and others. And we do, as of this moment in time, the town does not have another place that they can accept any sort of native fill. So I just didn't want to leave those 4 hanging.
Right. Okay. Anything else, anybody? So then I guess
I think Alan raised his hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris.
Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just giving you the update from the state. We haven't heard back from the state. I contacted the executive director of CAPS, and I also contacted directly, talked to the commissioner of education, both of whom will be contacting the commissioner of the EAS this evening. So minimally, I'll give you some sort of update tomorrow. I fully expect to hear something back.
Okay, great. Okay. Then with that, can we get a motion to adjourn? Anybody? All moves. Second, Sarah seconds. All in favor? Sounds like everybody wants to continue to hang around.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody's great input. Talk soon.
Okay.